So, good morning everyone, especially to our teacher. So, I am Jaros Duros Ansoles. So, our topic is all about Violence Against Women and their Children Act or Republic Act number 9262. So, this is an act defining violence against women and their children. It is providing for protective measures for victims and prescribing penalties. So, therefore, this act should be known as the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children of Act 2004. The next is protection orders. A protection order under the anti-voc law is defined as the purpose of preventing further acts of violence against a woman and her child, specified a section of this act and granting other necessary relief. The relief granted under a protection order should serve the purpose of safeguarding the victim, minimizing any disruption in the victim's daily life, and facilitating the opportunity and ability of the victim to independently gain control of her life. So, this is the law enumerates the following reliefs that may availed of through a protection order. So, first, 1. Prohibition of the respondent or perpetrator from threatening to commit or committing personally or through another or any of the acts penalized by the anti-voc law. So, second, prohibition of respondent from harassing, annoying, telephoning, contacting, or otherwise communicating with the petitioner or victim survivor directly or indirectly. Third, removal and exclusions of the respondent from the residence of the petitioner, whether temporarily, temporarily or permanently. So fourth, directing the respondent to stay away from the petitioner and any designated family or household member at a distance specified by the court. Number 5. Directing lawful possession and use by the petitioner of an automobile and other personal effects regardless of ownership. Number 6. Granting temporary or permanent custody of a child or children to the petitioner. Number 7. Directing the respondent to provide support to the woman and or her child of entitled to loyal support. Number 8. Prohibition of the respondent from any use or professions of any firearm or deadly weapon and in order him to surrender the same, or including revocation of license and disqualification to apply for any license to use or possess of a firearm. So next, number 9. Restitution for actual damage caused by a violence inflicted, including property damage, medical expenses, and loss of income. Number 10. Directing the Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD or any appropriate agency to provide temporary shelter and other social services that the petitioner may need, and provision of other forms of relief as may be necessary to protect and provide for the safety of the petitioner. So next is this is the rights of victims survivors of VOC cases. So RA 9262 specified the following as rights of the victim survivors. Section 35, rights of victims in addition to their rights under existing laws. Victims of violence against women and their children shall have the following rights: A. To be treated with respect and dignity. B. To avail of legal assistance from the public Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice or any public legal assistance office. C. To be entitled to support services from the DSWD and the LGUs or local government units. D. To be entitled to all legal remedies and support as provided for under the Family Code. And E. To be informed of their right to apply for a protection order. The right to privacy of the victim is also provided in the law, and its violations is punishable by imprisonment and fine. So, this means that the women victims of violence shall be entitled to the custody and support of her child, all children. Children below 7 years old, older but with mental or physical disability shall be automatically be given to the mother with right to support or unless the court finds compiling reasons to order. So that would be all. Thank you.
So, duties of national and local government offices. Section 39 of RA 9262 provides for the creation of the Interagency Council on Violence Against Women and their Children, which shall formulate gender-sensitive programs and projects according to their respective agency mandates, including capability-building programs for their employees. So, the implementing rules and regulations on the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children Act state the following duties and responsibilities of LGUs or the barangays in the addressing VAWC cases, apart from the insurances of barangay protection orders. So, Section 47, barangay officials' responsibilities and functions in order to reduce violence against women and their children, barangay authorities must Firstly, undertake an education program on Republic Act No. 9262 and violence against women and their children, including why it exists, victim survivor rights and remedies, and residents and all barangay authorities' responsibilities. So, dapat natay prior knowledge about VAWC para ma-aware ta and dili ta uninformed when possible situations occur na posibleng ma-alleged na kuan siya, makaingon nga VAWC na violence na siya against women and children. So, B, have a family violence prevention program including peer counseling for men. C, support organizing efforts and development programs for women in the community. D, prioritize livelihood projects for victim survivors. E, involve women in planning and implementation of all programs and projects in the barangay. So, dapat jud involved ng mga women in such programs since sila ang gibasean ani na act. And it would be better if we would know more sa ilang mga opinions and perception to conduct better solutions. So, next is have an anti-VAWC desk officer who would oversee a one-stop assistance desk. The support desk will be open as much as possible 24 hours a day. So this needs to be done kay we don't know when the violence will happen. A great example and mostly may tabo kay kanang mga drunk males harassing their partners sa kadlawon or late at night. So kinahanglan jud dapat 24 hours posible ang help desk. So F or G, ensure that all barangay officials, barangay health workers, barangay nutrition scholars, other barangay workers and tanod or barangay security officers undergo gender sensitivity seminars to enable them to respond to victims of violence. So this needs to be so authorities na mo-handle og situation in regards sa VAWC kinahanglan mo undergo og ginani na programs para makasabot sila why situations happen and what would be the best approach sa mga victims ani kay ilahi gender. So, nanatay LGBTQ. So, H, design a system for documenting and reporting incidents of VAWC as well as a victim aid program. So, para na i-record and can also serve a base of how rampant VAWC within an area. Unsa ka sito na. Nga na. And L, prescribe additional norms and criteria if relevant as long as they are compatible with the legislation. So the national and local government bodies play important responsibilities in implementing the VAWC Act. You'll be able to tell if the barangay you spoke with was carrying out its responsibilities in line with the law. So actual cases. So next. So the Supreme Court of the Philippines ruled on several cases involving violation of the Anti-VAWC Act or RA 9262. So ang case 1 is ang Dinamling versus CAGR 1999522 on late last June 22, 2015. So ang case 1 is Ricky Dinamling had been in a 5-year relationship with a lady, and the lady was told to pack her belongings in a garbage bag and a duckling cartoon box. Her eviction was based on the fact that she was reportedly using the property as a whorehouse. So while others watched, Ricky Dinamling yanked the girl's trousers and panty down and yelled at her. Another event occurred 6 days later on March 20, 2007. So the girl was admitted to the hospital for 4 days after being told she was bleeding and on the verge of miscarriage. So Section 5I of RA number 9 RA 9262 provides for the offense of causing mental or emotional anguish, public ridicule or humiliation to a woman and or her child. It also includes repeated verbal and emotional abuse and denial of financial support or custody of minor children. So the girl and her children were evicted by petitioner Dinamling from a boarding house in 2007. Petitioner accused the girl of using the boarding house as a whorehouse and alleged that the girl brought sexual partners to the place, among other things. Also humiliated the girl by throwing a baby bottle outside and breaking it. Case 2. Ang versus Court of Appeals in Sagud. General Register 182835, April 20, 2010. So this case involves an allegation that a former boyfriend committed a crime of violence against women by sending the girl a picture of a naked body, not her but with her face on it. Rustan Ang is charged with violation of the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of Republic Act 9262. He allegedly sent a pornographic picture to one Irish Sagud, who was his former girlfriend. The face of Ang was attached to a completely naked body of another woman. Alleged victim Irish Sagud and accused Rustan were classmates at Wesleyan University in Aurora Province. Rustan courted Irish and they became on and off sweethearts. After learning that Rustan had taken live-in partner, now his wife, whom he had gotten pregnant, Irish broke up with him. Rustan admitted courting Irish but she walked out on him after he told her girlfriend was pregnant. The police seized his cell phone and several SIM cards and brought him to the police station.
So, good morning guys. I'm Char Nikisel Ramirez and now I'm going to discuss to you the lesson 19 entitled The Law and Policies on Discrimination of the Members of LGBTQ+. So first, let me read to you the definition of terms. Equal protection. Equal protection requires that all persons or things similarly situated should be treated alike, both as to the right conferred and responsibilities imposed. It also refers to the idea that a governmental body may not deny people equal protection of its governing laws. So for example, for this is a state may not prohibited entire racial marriages or deny child custody to a couple because they are of different races or gender. So, for the due process, Due process is a principle that government must respect all of a person's legal rights, as this ensures that all laws and legal proceedings must be fair and equal for all. So, due process is what I've said earlier, that it is a legal requirement that requires the state to respect all the legal rights owned to a person. The 1987 Constitution, or the Equal Protection and Due Process Clause. The 1987 Philippines Constitution states that the state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees for respect for human rights. So, this state focuses on the dignity and for respect of every human rights. So, kani nga state is makita ninyo sa Article 2, Section 11 sa state policies sa 1987 Constitution. So, apart from this, the 1987 Constitution enshrines in its Due Process and Equal Protection Clause that no person shall be deprived of liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied the equal protection of the laws. In Article 3, Section 1, 1987 Philippines Constitution. So, ang Ladlad case, or ang Ladlad LGBT Party versus Comelec GR 190582, 8 April 2010, considered the breadth of the Equal Protection Clause in the Constitution. So, this is a petition for certiorari under Rule 65 of the Rules of Court, with an application for a writ of preliminary mandatory injunction filed by ang Ladlad LGBT Party o ang Ladlad against the resolution of the Commission of Election, or the COMELEC. So the fact about this is, before the COMELEC petitioners argue that the LGBT or lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community is a marginalized, underrepresented sector that is particularly disadvantaged because of their sexual orientation and gender identity, that LGBTs are victims of exclusion, discrimination, and violence that because of negative societal attitudes. LGBTs are constrained to hide their sexual orientation, and that ang Ladlad complied with the 8 points guidelines enunciated by this court in any Bagong Bayani OFW Labor Party versus Commission on Elections. Ang Ladlad laid out its national membership base consisting of individual members of governance on August 17, 2009. Ang Ladlad filed a petition for registration with the COMELEC. So if you're asking kung unsay issues ani nila, well, it is because whether or not the denial of accreditation by COMELEC violated the constitutional guarantees against the establishment of region insofar as it justifies the exclusion by using religious dogma. So if you're asking what is dogma, dogma is a principle of set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true.
Good day, everyone. I'm CJ Pontanilla Sotomil, and today I'm going to tackle about the violence and discrimination against LGBTQ youth in education, and last is violence and discrimination against LGBTQ in workplace. So first is violence and discrimination. In March 2016, the Trans Murder Monitoring Project listed 41 reported cases of transgender people murdered in the country since 2008. The case of Jennifer Laude, who is a member of LGBTQ, a transgender woman, has called for justice. Her death became a breaking point, so that's why, in response to the killing and history of violence, the LGBTQ groups are demanding for more protection. So now let's jump up to the violence and discrimination against LGBTQ Youth in Education. So first is Anti-Bullying Act of 2013, or which we known as Republic Act number 10627. So Anti-Bullying Act of 2013 includes gender-based bullying as prohibited and punishable act. So gender-based bullying is defined as any act that humiliates or excluded a person the basis of perceived or actual sexual orientation and gender identity, or SOGI, Republic Act number 10627. For example, for this act is gibully ang isa ka tao because of his or her gender. Like, pakaulawan nimo siya because kay dapat kung laki or bi siya, dapat laki or bi rajud siya. So that's under Anti-Bullying Act of 2013. So next is Child Protection Policy of 2012. So it is where the bullying is committed by a principal or a teacher or any other school personnel. So the Department of Education or DepEd Order number 40 on Child Protection Policy. This policy includes the protection of students from any form of violence regardless of their sexual orientation or even the gender identity. So meaning, pag naay mabuli nimo sa school na usa ka school personnel, pwede nimo silang kasuhan kay this is under the law. So next is Special Protection of Children Against Child Abuse, Exploitation and Discrimination Act of 1992, or this also known as Anti-Child Abuse Act or Republic Act number 7610. So parents of children who suffered abuse at the hands of teachers or members of the school's administration violates RA 7610 or Anti-Child Abuse Act. So this act providing for stronger deterrence and special protection against child abuse, exploitation, and provides penalties for its violation and other purpose. It is also stated there that all children in the Philippines and Filipino children elsewhere are protected for all forms of violence and abuses, exploitation, and discrimination. And last is violence and discrimination against LGBTQ in workplace. So first is Labor Code of the Philippines or PD 442. It is called the national law covering employment for the private sector in the Philippines. The law is quite on gender, identity, and expression. It is clear in its Declaration of Policy Article 3 that states, shall afford protection to labor, promote full employment, and ensure equal work opportunities. But then the reality shows a different picture because of being a LGBTQ member, because of their looks, gender identity, so many LGBTQ members missed a lot of opportunities because of discrimination. So next is CSC number 001-0940, the Civil Service Commission Policy and Anti-Sexual Harassment. So this role is all for the government entities that fall under the civil service jurisdiction. This policy is very important because of its implicity, covers derogatory remark regarding sex, sexual orientation that remarks description of a person with the intention to insult. So this policy for government agency does not require that the offender has moral ascendancy over the victim. If a LGBTQ civil servant is harassed verbally by co-workers, they would be able to rely on the generic protection from derogatory and degrading remarks. So, when we say derogatory and degrading remarks, the difference between these two is derogatory is tending to derogate or lessen in value of someone, expressing derogation detracting and injurious. While degrading is degrade something that is disrespectful or honorable, like degrading comment that angered everyone who heard it. So that would be all, and thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Antoinette Bedad, and I am the group leader of Group 5. Now I'm going to discuss the last topic, which is the lesson 20. The title is Discrimination on the Basis of Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity, and Expression, or we all know this SUGI in the Philippines. Next is first I'm going to define what is discrimination. All we know that discriminations are very relevant and very rampant nowadays. Whenever we go, we hear and we saw discrimination. So what is discrimination? Discrimination is the unfair or prejudicial treatment of people and groups based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. So that is discrimination. Now, what is SUGI? SUGI is an acronym for sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression aspects of gender of persons, which must be considered and given attention. So I'm gonna give a history background, rather. Sorry for that. So the first version of the SUGI Equality Bill was filed in the 11th Congress by the late Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago and Akbayan Representative Ita Rosales. So it was pending for 19 years, and it's now coming to fruition in the 17th Congress through the ardent efforts of Bataan 1st District Representative Geraldine Roman, Diwa Party List Representative Emeline Aglipay Villar, and Dinagat Islands Representative Arlene or Kaka Bagao. While the bill still has to hurdle the Senate, its passage in the House is already a victory in itself for the LGBTQ plus community. Next is the Anti-Discriminatory Bill, a proposed legislation before the Philippine Congress intended to prevent various economic and public accommodation-related acts of discrimination against people based on their SUGI. So, an anti-discriminatory bill was proposed by Congresswoman Geraldine Roman of the 1st District of Bataan. So, the first trans woman member of the Philippine Congress delivered an impartial appeal to her fellow legislators in the House of Representatives to pass the anti-discrimination bill. So, what is anti-discriminatory bill? It is a measure that seeks to penalize discrimination against LGBT, which is include lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender citizens. So the bill purpose is not to accord special rights to LGBT, but to protect the human rights that everyone possesses. This bill is expected to be signed into law before the end of the Duterte administration. So the purpose of SUGI is meant to fulfill the rights set forth in the 1987 Constitution, particularly the Equal Protection Clause. So it recognizes the LGBTQ plus as equals and ensures that their rights are protected in as much as everyone's is. The bill also acknowledged the Philippines' duties under international law, particularly the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It thus recognizes the non-discrimination of the LGBTQ plus as both a national and international duty. So the purpose of this SUGI in the Philippines, it's not all about it's either straight woman or men, but it has to be a enclosed to the SUGI, which is the LGBTQ community, that to have the rights, human rights, to have a freedom to choose whatever they want in dress, rather, for example, to vote in political, to give them a freedom to give opinion when it comes to political aspects. And whenever they go, it may be international. This SUGI bill will gonna protect the LGBTQ community. So that's the purpose of SUGI, to to fight the rights to give them an equal freedom. So right now the continuing fight, the bill passed its third reading in the 17th Congress in 2017, but it had its end after languishing in the Senate. However, the fight for equality still continues as staunch advocate Senator Risa Hontiveros sponsored once more in December 2020. So this time as a sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and sex characteristics, or SUGI SE, Equality Bill, or Senate Bill number 1934. Now we're going to proceed to universal policy. In universal policy, in Articles 2, Section 1, 3, and 26 of the Convention provide for the respect, equality, and non-discrimination of all individuals on the grounds of inter alia, race, color, and sex. So in the landmark decision of Tonen versus Austria in 1994, it is found not only that the reference to sex in Articles 2, Section 1 and 26 must be taken to include sexual orientation, but also that laws which criminalize consensual homosexual acts expressly violate the privacy protection of the law. So in the universal policy, it entitled to all the rights and freedoms without distinction of any kind of race, color, or any characteristics of a person's head, the imperfectionist. So we all have the rights and freedom, whatever we do. It may be in LGBTQ community or straight. Everyone has the right to live, and everyone has the right to claim and to control their life without depending what society wants us to do. Liberty and the security of protection, of course, the security, the safety for everyone. All Filipinos are guaranteed equitable access to quality and affordable healthcare, of course, and healthcare goods and services, and protected against financial risk. In the PhilHealth, they do not have a favoritism, so it must include LGBTQ. So that's the universal policy. Now the national and local policies. So LGUs, or local government from different cities all over the Philippines, have been proactive in passing and filing city ordinances banning LGBTQ discrimination. So it goes all over in the Philippines. It's either national or in a local policy, or what we call in rural area or in the urban areas. So when you hear, or in the city, for example, here in Bacong, it is mandated for the barangays to help that discrimination to LGBTQ. It's very it will define obeying the law. We must respect them. We must have the equal treatment to them. So national and local policies, it may be in workplaces and the education. So for the education, DepEd Order number 40, or the DepEd Child Protection Policy. So it is guarantee the protection of children in schools from any form of violence, abuse, or exploitation, regardless of sexual orientation and gender identity. So the school must mandated for this one, because they are involved. They have a rules and regulations when it comes to discriminations of LGBTQ plus. If there's any complaint regarding to these situations and circumstances, they are the responsible for this, to stop and to prevent this happening inside their school or inside the workplace. So that is the national and local policies. Now the effect of state discrimination in the society. So we all know that discriminations, any form of human beings, are very relevant and very popular issues nowadays. There's a lot of who judge easily. It's either in the gender, it's either in cultures, a religious person, and a religion, or what the religion of the person. There always be a judge or opinion regarding to that one. So even the students students LGBT are experiencing abuse by other students, staff, administrators, and teachers. So some of the LGBTQ members who are not really educated about how important or there is a law that protected them, but they are not educated. So they are being abused, they are being silenced because they are afraid to express themselves, especially for the LGBT youth, that their parents, they are also targeted by their parents, who also are very ignorant about what the child gender identity, and it for the child who are really want to express themselves, express their sexuality, they're afraid to tell their parents because they might be disappointed of what the child didn't want in his or her life. So homophobia, the stigma, and prejudice toward LGBT person are very present within Filipino society, creating a dangerous climate of hostility toward LGBT people. So in the discussion, in the previous discussion, or when we saw in our Facebook platform, they're always being used toward the current cases of a murder cases of LGBT transgender women who are killed just by being themselves, and it's so sad because this is a stigma of a relevant issues nowadays that there's no a solution. Although we have a bill, we have law, but sad to say we cannot prevent this for having a discrimination. People, LGBTQ people who attempted suicide because of discriminations of the society. So that's the effect of state discrimination in society towards the LGBT people. Now we're going to tackle of discrimination by the Catholic Church. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, CBCP, and Episcopal Commission on Family and Life, or ECFL, has been fervently demanding Congress for the removal of sex, gender, sexual orientation, and gender identity. We all know that the enemy of this LGBTQ community is the church. Church has also their norms. They have the cultures, the morals that they thought of everyone, and install everyone's mind that there's no other gender identity aside from being men and women, because according to them in the Bible there's no mention of other person. There's only one woman and one man. So they are against to the SUGI bill, the SUGI equality bill. They are very against to that. That's why it's also one of the reasons why this bill are pending. They said that it will create chaos regarding ethics, marriage, and religious freedom. The reasons that difference in sex and gender are not belong to the same level as the difference in race, color, religion, or ethnicity. So the church said that this bill claimed that ADB, or the act, this discriminatory bill, will open the door for same-sex marriage. So here in the Philippines, there's no marriage towards men to men and women to women, aside from the international other country. It's because Catholic Church are they're not favor to this bill. They are very against to that because of the ethnicity, because of their norms and their beliefs that there is no gays, lesbians. It's all about the minds. I have also heard here that one. So that's all. That's my all about discussions. So again, I have the SUGI, the definition of terms, anti-discriminatory bill. Sorry, the ADB rather is anti-discriminatory bill, not act. Sorry for that. That is anti. So that's anti-discriminatory bill. We have the universal policy, national and local policies, effect of state discrimination in society, and discrimination by the.
So next will be the participation of the members of LGBTQ+ in public life. So Article 25 of the Convention provides for the right of each citizen to participate in public affairs, to vote, and to have equal access to public service in the country. So for this one, no matter what your gender is, you are free to do those things mentioned earlier. So for example is, if ever I want to serve our country but the public are against to it because I am a female and they believe that I am not capable of doing this thing because of my gender, then that's a discrimination. So the Soldier Bill will be the one who will protect me against the discrimination and will also give me justice. So, second, we will talk about the discrimination in the military. So, through their media announcements, it seems on the surface that the Philippine military and the police are adhering to the non discrimination clause of the Philippine Constitution, Act 2, and the ICCPR by its declaration of openness to admit gays, lesbians, and bisexual persons in military and police service. So, as mentioned earlier, no matter what your gender is, you may be gay, lesbian, or bisexual, you are allowed to join the Philippine military and police. And most importantly, when you join this the military and the police, you are free from discrimination. That would be all. Thank you.